I saw a funny conspiracy theory that the Lakers were vetting JJ Redick by going through his podcast, and when they came upon the conversation of Redick and LeBron talking about how genius Dan Hurley is going into the national championship game and how his offense is something that could absolutely work in the NBA, that JJ just gave away his job to Dan there. But what I am interested in, seriously, and I don't know behind closed doors how this all went, if it seemed like Hurley was an option that was off the table until he wasn't, but I'm wondering where the smoke came from on JJ Redick. And the first person we heard about that from was Shams.
Yeah.
And we need to remember again that Shams has a deal with FanDuel. And now this is the second time in a year that he's put out pretty bombshell breaking news that didn't end up being the case.
Yeah.
You remember going into the last NBA draft, he said there was a ton of steam on the Charlotte Hornets taking Scoot Henderson at number 2. Those lines moved drastically, and then they moved back when it was reported, oh, actually, no, they're zeroing in on Brandon Miller. So
there's a lot of people that are starting to wonder if maybe Shams is compromised.
If you're doing something like this in plain sight, it would be pretty easy to catch. We would think, at least based on what we've seen with some other idiots getting caught gambling in sports. But at the same time, like, where do you, I guess my question for you is, where do you draw the line as far as what is, you don't want to tell this guy, oh, you can't make money off of, whatever it is you do. But when you're in bed with the sports books and you're reporting news, you're definitely blurring that line.
It's weird. And this is one of those things that when gambling became illegal, we knew there was going to be some of this, because it's all information based, right? And I don't know why we haven't really come to this point before. But any insider from, was it like maybe Chris Mortensen was the first NFL insider that I really remember. John Clayton was one, and then Schefter became in, and then the NBA, like Peter Vesey back in the day was an inside guy. And
I feel like Tim Kirkjian and Buster
Kirkjian,
Olney maybe
baseball,
for a while.
Yeah, for those guys. And some of those guys I really like. Some of them not so much, but like you give all the I
think David Aldridge in the NBA was that way.
Yeah, and like you respect them, and then some of them they're an eye roll to me. But we all know, any information they get, I don't know why this is so hard for people to comprehend. They don't get information because they're like great reporters,
or because the Lakers front office told them.
They get information because people want them to have it.
Yeah.
So,
gets leaked out on purpose via these people, these reporters.
So we know that agents, we know that teams, we know that players, we know that all of these entities give information to reporters because they want their side out. Adam Schefter got caught checking with, I think it was Dalvin Cook's agent, if I'm not mistaken, checking with Dalvin Cook's agent saying, hey, I'm about to release this because
he drafted his tweet and said, is this okay?
Is this okay?
And then he tweeted it.
Yeah, because Dalvin Cook was being accused of domestic violence. And Schefter was basically saying, hey, Dalvin Cook is innocent. Look at this. And he sent it to the agent. He's like, hey, is this
going to be up to muster for you? And you're getting the approval of the person in question.
So is it that hard to think that someone at FanDuel or someone puts that information out to Shams, and whether Shams knows that he's moving lines specifically or not?
And that may not be part of the game, but there was something that motivated him enough to put that piece of information out there. And if you're to believe Woj, who came with the Hurley news, Woj says that Hurley was the Lakers guy from the start.
From the start. It is such a wonky thing, these insiders, because they're all compromised. I don't care who you are, Woj, Shams, Schefter, any of those guys. I don't care how respected, and like John Clayton, rest in peace, and Mortensen, by the way, two of the most respected guys to ever do it. If you don't think for 1 second that those guys were shills and mouthpieces for people, I don't know what to tell you. This doesn't surprise me. And you got to be careful, because I'm telling you, Shams, who has become, I think he's equal. Like when you talk about NBA breaking news, right? It's a Woj bomb or it's Shams.
Yep.
Like it's one of those.
It's 1A, 1B. It feels
1 and 1B. And boy, I even know people that I talk to in our area here are starting to kind of look at Shams and get a little bit of that side eye and be like, really, man?
Like who's driving the narrative, who's driving the information.
And so I don't know if there'll be any backlash, but I think this,
and I don't know if it'll have anything to do with FanDuel either, but it's just odd the way that this story
looks bad. It looks bad.
Because the story got a lot of momentum, the JJ
Yes.
Redick thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like it was something that like a Reddit account threw against the wall, and then it was like, oh, we can corroborate that Redick was at the building or something. I mean, it was a credible source with a
bad.
real thing,
Yeah.
and now it seems like that there wasn't any substance to it. So I
think it is really weird because as a team, you have to be real careful blurring the line with gambling.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, right? Teams and owners are in bed. Like you go to any stadium, right? And you see DraftKings, you see FanDuel stuff. Owners of professional teams have stakes in those things.
I was telling Will before the show, I was watching a game this playoffs. I didn't even know that it existed. An alternate gambling cast for the NBA playoffs approved by the league, in which you have 2 professional gamblers and 2 former professional basketball players talking about live betting the entire game. They're beyond in bed with them. They're leveraging them.
I just think it's awkward. And look, we've done stuff for the Oregon Lottery, and then that obviously turned into DraftKings, and we've read ads for them. I'm not a reporter. Right? Like I'm not an NBA insider. I'm not an NFL insider. We're entertainers, right? We're paid for 4 hours a day to come on here and try to have some interesting discussions, try to give you some little tidbits to think about, maybe have some laughs with, Uncle Chuckles over here. Like it's an entertainment thing that we're basing around sports. If I was the Blazers beat reporter, right? If I was Jason Quick back in the day, or I was, Freeman, or, whoever, Dwight back in the day, whoever was on the beat, I personally would feel very, very uncomfortable being a DraftKings sponsor. I think what Shams does, I think it's very, very...
It's kind of dicey.
I think it's weird. I just... And I know you're allowed to do it, but there's just some things where the optics of it
don't sit right.
They don't sit right. Yeah. And maybe Shams, this is a non-factor and he doesn't care, and the dude makes a bunch of money and he's going to make a bunch of money from DraftKings. I just know that when you cross a line and people start questioning credibility, boy, it's a dicey thing, man. It's a real dicey thing, especially if people stop giving you information because they feel like you are no longer an effective mouthpiece, right? Because remember, all these guys are mouthpieces. And if someone stops feeding you the info because they think that when they do, the gig is up and people are going to start looking at him and it's going to get all squirrely, he just better be careful.
Well, the other thing too is
it doesn't look good.
If this happens again, the credibility's shot. I mean, do you start to just not believe when a Shams bomb comes out because of the fact and now there have been a couple instances where maybe there's something not to believe anymore?
I certainly have. It's starting. I'm not saying I'm there where I roll my eyes, but it certainly is no longer something when I see, like, my first reaction isn't, oh my God, like, I can't believe this. My first reaction is, I wonder who wants that out. I wonder where this is coming from.